Welcome to the show, everyone. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA and still on AM 540. Of course, I got the privilege, obviously, of hosting Bud Hedinger Live Monday and Tuesday morning, which was a lot of fun. But usually I do this show, the Beyond Reason. I podcast it on my website as well, beyondreasonradio.com. So it looks like this show is going to be on for a while, every Friday night at 8 p.m. So make sure to join me. This is where we talk faith, culture, and politics. And, well, basically, I am your voice of reason that sifts through everything in the news and in the world that is beyond reason. So if you want the voice of reason through all that, this is the place to listen. And I'm joined producing tonight, by the way, Tom Benson. Mr. Tom Benson, how you doing, sir?
Good evening. It's a Friday. I'm always doing well on a Friday. And I guess
good.
The circus is going to get even crazier now, huh?
Oh, of course. Yeah, the circus is getting crazy. It definitely is a circus because I'm sure you're all excited about this. Come one, come all. The announcement that Hillary Clinton is about to announce her candidacy for president.
Sir.
Yeah, don't do that. It's contagious.
What difference does it make at this point? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. And you informed me, and I just looked it up now. Mm-hmm. She's going to announce on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then she's going to have an email and video announcement.
Yeah. Controlled environment.
Oh,
she doesn't want to doesn't
Talk
want to get
about
out there
Yawnsville.
doesn't want to get out in the branch and maybe have something happen that makes her look bad.
So obviously now, and this isn't a shock to most people. Everyone, I mean, who else did the Democrats have? There's only one other person that I think could run and maybe get some traction, and that's Al Gore.
Oh.
I don't want that to happen.
No.
But I could actually see that happening. But Hillary Clinton's going to run. It's kind of inevitable, like Tom Benson did. Yawnsville. So the question then is, do you think that she can win? I don't think so. A lot of people think she's the inevitable candidate. A lot of people think she's the one who can win. It's her time. But did you all forget what happened in 2008? That was supposed to be her time. That was her ticket. That was when she was supposed to win. And wait a minute, what happened? Oh, yeah, she lost to a guy by the name of Barack Obama. Believe it or not, Obama is one of the biggest reasons why I believe Hillary Clinton will not win. Because if she couldn't win in 2008, when she was more well-known, when she was, frankly, better looking and younger, when she didn't have as much baggage as she has now, what makes you think she's going to win now? I, frankly, don't think she has a chance. And that is why I believe there's so many Republicans lining up. They're like lining up around the White House. Tens of them, hundreds of them, it seems like, trying to run for president on the Republican side. And they're doing it this time because they know Hillary Clinton is beatable. Tell me, do you think Hillary Clinton is beatable? 407-674-1025. I'm going to tell you, though, the main reason why I think Hillary Clinton not only can be beaten, but will be beaten. And really, I don't need to say anything more. I just need to, well, you just need to listen to Hillary. Just listen to a little bit of what Hillary Clinton sounds like.
I am sick and tired of people who say that if you debate and you disagree with this administration, somehow you're not patriotic, and we should stand up and say we are Americans and we have a right to debate and disagree with any administration. The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
What difference at this point? I'm an American and it's like nails on a chalkboard. I hope I didn't run anyone off the road with that shrill. Look, I don't necessarily like this about our country. The reason I would never vote for Hillary Clinton is because I disagree with her socialist big government policies and her views on foreign policy and her views on the world. That is why I would never vote for her. But there's a lot of people in this country, who still look at image. Image is still vitally important in this country when it comes to who's running for president, when it comes to politics. It's just the way it is. And when Hillary Clinton, when someone gives off that kind of vibe, that kind of image, the shrill, the nastiness, it just doesn't work. And it's automatically assumed that she's going to get the woman vote. Let's just assume she's going to get the woman vote. I don't think a lot of women like that. I don't have any statistics on this, but this might be the most politically incorrect thing I've ever said on this show. Well, I don't know about that. But I think women, it's harder for a woman to get the woman vote because women are more critical of other women than they are of men. I just think that's the case. I think there's a lot of women out there who will not vote for her, that they're going to criticize every little thing she does. I also know some women, believe it or not, that don't believe a woman should be president. In fact, it's very interesting. Of all the people that I've talked to that believe a woman should not be president, they've all been women. Most men I talk to think it's okay for a woman to be president, including me. I supported Michelle Bachmann in the last election. But a lot of women, and maybe it's mostly older women, I don't know, I've known younger women too. They're old-fashioned, and they believe that a woman should not be president. It's not a woman's place to be president. I don't believe that. I think as long as they're qualified, as long as they have the right vision for America, I think it's fine for a woman to be president. Just not her. Ugh. Just not her. And unfortunately, with that kind of image, and by the way, in the next segment, we're going to go over her accomplishments. If we can find them. We're going to search through everything and see if we can find some of her accomplishments. I wish we were in a country where image didn't matter. I wish we were in a country where they would look at Hillary Clinton, look at her policy ideas, which, by the way, Obamacare, Hillary Clinton tried to pass something like Obamacare years ago, before Obamacare. She's a believer in big government control over the economy, big government control over healthcare, higher taxes on everybody, more and more regulations, getting rid of our military strength in the world. It's just the way it is. She's not much different than Barack Obama in terms of policies. She's either more radical or as radical as Obama when it comes to this stuff. I wish people would see that about her. I wish I could explain that part of her and people would say, no, I want someone who's more for individual liberty. I want someone who's more for getting the government out of the way and letting the free market capitalist system work and create wealth and grow an economy so more people can get jobs and we're all doing better. Hillary Clinton doesn't believe in that. In fact, there's another bite. I wish I found it, but I know it's out there. I remember years ago when she used to complain about oil companies' profits, and she said, I'm going to take those profits and do this with them. What right do you have as president, as senator, as anyone to take a company's profits just because they're a successful company? Just because a business is successful doesn't mean they should be punished and you should take away their profits and give it to whatever, redistribute wealth. The past 6.5 years of Obama has been nothing more than the government constantly trying to redistribute wealth. And it's not working. We still have record amount of people out of the workforce. Record unemployment for young people. People in my generation, the Yaffee generation. Healthcare costs are going through the roof. The economy is not growing as much as it should be. And more jobs are going overseas. I thought Obama was going to fix all this. No, because redistributing wealth doesn't work. Because the government can't create wealth. The government doesn't create anything. When a free market capitalist system works, more wealth is created and generated, and an economy not only prospers, it grows. Our current president doesn't understand that, and if you think Hillary Clinton understands that, no. She is just big government as Obama. So behind this microphone, I'm going to show you all those things as she's running to say why she would make a terrible president. That's going to go beyond image. But unfortunately, with a lot of people today, image is everything. And her image is just as bad, if not worse, than her policies. Do you think Hillary Clinton can win? 407-674-1025. In the next segment, we're going to try to go through all of her policies, and we're going to try to see if we can get a flashlight and maybe search for some of her accomplishments, if they're out there. We'll see. 407-674-1025. We'll get to that next. You are listening to Beyond Reason at BeyondReasonRadio.com and News Radio 102.5 WFLA. Welcome back to Beyond Reason Radio. This is Michael Yaffee, as always, hosting. You're listening to the show on my website, BeyondReasonRadio.com, News Radio 102.5 WFLA. By the way, there's like a million different places now to get this show. You can listen live on those places, but you can also get the podcast on iTunes, on the TuneIn Radio app, on SoundCloud, on Spreaker. That's a new one. There's just a ton of places you can find the show afterwards. So no excuse not to listen to the show. And make sure to like me on Facebook as well, Facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. So in the last segment, I asked, can Hillary Clinton win? I don't think she will. I'm not even sure she can win the Democratic primary because, frankly, people don't like her. And what's there to like about her? I told you why I would never vote for her, because of her policies. And I wish the country was with me on that. And I'm going to try to get the country more and more with me on that behind this microphone every time I do a show. Because her policies, like Obama's policies, don't work. But in terms of image, she has a terrible image. And by the way, I wanted to make this point earlier. It's assumed that everyone knows her, everyone remembers the Clinton years and how great they were. There was a whole new generation of young voters who don't remember the Clinton years, who were not around or too young to remember that. So they don't have this glory look of Hillary Clinton. They don't look at her like some of the older generation does. They don't look at Bill Clinton like some of the older generation does. And that's because they're young. They don't remember. So they're going to do what a lot of people did in the last election and go for a new face, a fresh face, like Obama. That's what scares me. That all of a sudden this guy or girl comes out of nowhere on the Democratic side and woos all the people based on his image, like Obama did in 2008. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Hopefully maybe there's someone on the Republican side who can do that. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to take a call here by someone who actually disagrees with me. Scott in Ocoee, what do you think? Can Hillary win?
Well, first and foremost, Michael, I want to say congratulations on getting the show and congratulations on your success. I've been on Bud's show before as a caller, and I always believe that local media really shapes the character of a city, and I wish you nothing but the very best.
Oh, thanks, Scott. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you listening to the morning show. Anyone who doesn't know, I produce Bud Hedinger Live's mornings at 6 to 9 on this station, but I'm really glad that you're now a part of Beyond Reason Radio.
Well, I think you're a younger voice, and I think that you're a fresh voice, and again, I wish you all the best. The question you asked, can she win? Of course she can win. I mean, the possibility is there. I mean, Michael, are you really going to go on the record right now and say you don't believe she's going to win the Democratic nomination?
On
because
the record?
I'll go on the record right now. I'll go on the record right now and say Hillary Clinton's going to win the Democratic nomination.
I don't know.
Are you going to go on the record and say? Are you going to go on the record now and say she's not going to win the Democratic nomination?
I'm not going to go on the record. I will go on the record right now and say she will not win the presidency.
Okay.
I don't know.
Fine,
she might win the Democratic nomination.
Right now, her priority is to win the Democratic nomination, and she's
This
going
is true.
to do that.
I don't
She's
know.
going to do that.
Because a lot of people
The
said that
second
in
thing is
2008.
I'm sorry?
Well, it's just a lot of people said the same thing in 2008. I remember they was just thought she was going to win, and she didn't.
2008, which would be, we're talking 2016. That'd be almost a decade ago. Okay, and she was running against a guy who gave the keynote speech in 2004. Was very charismatic and certainly on the radar. There's nobody on the radar now
Well, that's
in the Democratic
true.
Party.
As of right now, there isn't. You're right.
So let's go ahead and say it's a given. She's going to win the nomination. I believe Hillary Clinton is going to be the first presidential candidate who's going to run the table in the caucuses and primaries. She's going to win all of them.
Wow.
I also believe she has incredible fundraising prowess.
True.
I also believe she has a tech squad. If you go to Politico and look up Hillary's Nerd Squad, as the article was printed about 3-4 weeks ago, she's hiring up to 1,000 techies to do data mining for the sole purpose of voter turnout during the general election. And during the primary, she's going to identify every single voter who supports her, and then she's going to make sure they get to the polls in the general election.
Yeah, well, she's learning from Obama in that regard.
Right, and the point of the matter is if the question is can she win? Yes, she can win, and the Republican Party certainly should not drop their guard and assume that this is going to be an easy task, because it's not going to be an easy task, Michael. She's not a pushover. This woman is.
Well, she is definitely not a pushover.
Very tough competitor. She's a very tough competitor, and for anyone to say things like people don't like her and to make these types of subjective analysis of her,
well,
dude, you don't go into war underestimating the enemy. You go into war assuming that they're going to be as tough as nails. And for people to go in and say, oh, this is going to be easy, she's not liked, the younger generation doesn't know her, et cetera, it's not a good strategy, man.
Well, okay.
You got to go in thinking she is going to be tough as hell to beat.
Well, I will say this, and this actually brings up a good point. Scott, I thank you for your call. In terms of being tough, I'm going to talk about a little bit later how Rand Paul is being wishy-washy on all this and not, he was being really tough in interviews, being really tough against Hillary, and then he was attacked and he kind of backed off. So I'm kind of with you on that. Let's be tough. Let's stand up for our grounds. Let's not assume it's a victory. And I'm talking conservatives against Hillary, but also against like Jeb Bush. If we want a conservative to beat Jeb Bush, you're right. We're going to have to be tough. But this is a subjective show and it's my opinion. And I'm just stating, I just don't think it's as inevitable that Hillary Clinton's going to win as people think. By the way, we were trying to find her accomplishments, and we found this video where some young people were asked, I believe outside of college, basically they were asked, should Hillary run for president? Here is what they said.
I think it'd be really cool to have a woman president, but she'd have to overcome some issues before getting there.
Definitely when you think about the fact that we already have had our first African-American president, I think this is really an era of progression in American politics, and we could set the stage for really set an example for the rest of the world. If we have our first African-American president and then immediately follow that with our first woman president, that would just be amazing.
I'm honestly a huge Hillary fan. I think that Hillary can do a lot for this country. I loved her tenure as Secretary of State. I'm actually doing my senior thesis on it at the moment. So,
talk about yawning.
I mean, if I could see her run for president, I'd definitely
Hillary
vote for her.
Clinton.
That would be really cool because she's
Unless
a
you did it on
woman,
all her
and it's
scandals.
woman
She should be
Be
empowerment.
the first candidate that I would vote for.
I think she should go for it.
Yeah, I agree. Why not?
I think Bill's got a lot of followers and he owes her one, so why not?
I think she's the most obvious Democratic candidate.
I think it would be really interesting to have yet another legacy of like continuing the Clintons. Like we've had multiple Bushes, like having another Clinton, like having just that continued legacy seems kind of weird. But I mean, Hillary is an amazing woman. She's done so much. And the idea of having a woman as president is really exciting. So I think it would be cool.
I think that this country is ready for a female president. I'm not a feminist, but, ready for a new, fresh face out in office.
How was she fresh? Ugh. Anyways, that one kid talked about progression. You know what real progress would be? Is if, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, is if we based who we voted for on their policies and their character, not on their gender or the color of their skin. But that's real progress. Not, Oh, well, we have an African-American president and next a woman president. That's progress. Who cares if they're destroying the economy and destroying the country? No, progress is where we look at the individual and the individual based on the individual's merits. That's progress. So, yep, there's a bunch of young people, though, who believe that Hillary should run. Yeah, it'd be great. Woo, Hillary Clinton. Oh, what difference does it make? Okay. So, these same people, these same kids, these are the same exact kids who answered those questions before. They were asked, what's Hillary Clinton's accomplishments?
I'm not really sure. I'm not that into politics.
I don't know. It's a tough question. I don't know. I really don't know.
Definitely not the Benghazi ordeal.
Don't say
right?
Whoa.
I have no clue. There's just so many. Just the fact that she's been such a world leader and just recognized all over as doing so many great things.
She's trying.
I don't even know that I could pick a single accomplishment.
Her soft power approach,
yeah, because you can't think of
I think, was a very big and positive contrast to the previous 8 years under the Bush administration.
How?
And I think really, gained America's credibility abroad and was very positive for the U.S. in general.
Like Israel. They love
As
us now,
Secretary of State, she has just done a great job in not letting things deteriorate.
What?
Honestly, I'm not very up to date with politics,
you're definitely
but
not.
I know she hasn't made a major
Have you heard of
mistake, and
ISIS?
that would definitely be an accomplishment.
What do you think
Ukraine?
is her greatest achievement as Secretary of State?
Well,
China?
she didn't have that many before she
Yeah, you're right. She didn't
gave
have
up that
many.
role.
Yeah, that's true.
And the way she handled Benghazi was remarkably adept at international affairs, so I really
You mean
respect her for
lying
that.
and getting caught? That's remarkably adept. It's just so funny because these are the same people. This is what I mean when I say, unfortunately, with a lot of people, it's all about image. That's what I mean by that. Because all those people now, they were pro-Hillary because of image, because of the first woman president. So maybe Scott was right. Maybe her image is better. But once it came to naming her accomplishments, naming what she has done, why, what she believes, what's her vision for the country, they couldn't think of anything because there is nothing. Especially Secretary of State to say she hasn't made any mistakes, that nothing's deteriorated. The whole Middle East is deteriorating. ISIS is on the move in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Tunisia, in Libya. They're beheading Christians by the thousands. Well, I don't know if they're beheading them by the thousands, but they're killing them by the thousands, raping women over there. The whole place is deteriorating. Ukraine, Russia is basically trying to take over part of Ukraine, and they're succeeding. It's deteriorated there. China is building up their military and building up their space military, by the way, in space, while our NASA does nothing. Foreign policy is a disaster, and Hillary Clinton was at the center of a lot of it. If I can't say this enough, I hope that I can convince people not to vote for her based on her vision, her policy beliefs, and her history, which is bad. But I wanted to be positive, and Scott disagrees with me on this approach. I just wanted to say I don't think it's inevitable. But the Republicans have to be tough. And unfortunately, the one bad thing with a whole bunch of Republicans running is they're going to all bash each other before they bash Hillary. 407-674-1025. When I get back, I'm going to ask this question. What does it mean to live in a free country? What does religious freedom mean? 407-674-1025. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, beyondreasonradio.com, News Radio 1025 WFLA. Is it beyond reason for a church to be able to fire an employee in their daycare center who's gay. Should a church be allowed to do that? Fire an employee at a daycare center who is gay. Well, that's exactly what happened at a local church that I've actually been to, Aloma Methodist Church. It's on 436 in Aloma here in Orlando. For anyone who's listening to the show or podcast outside of Florida, in Orlando area, a local church. It looks like, at least the people who were fired are saying, that they had a couple of girls who worked at the daycare center. One named Jacqueline Pfeiffer and the other Kelly Bardier. They both worked, one as a substitute, one as a teacher, and there was rumor going around that the couple was gay. So the director asked them, this is a church, this is a religious organization, and they were asked if the couple was gay. By the way, you're listening to Beyond Reason Radio here on News Radio 102.5, BeyondReasonRadio.com. It's your host, Michael Yaffee, and I'm going to try to sift through some more stuff out there that is beyond reason. So obviously this couple is upset because they think that they should not be allowed. They're suing the church. They think they should not be allowed to be fired because they're gay. The main question I have for you is, what does it mean to be in a free country anymore? It used to mean religious freedom. Our country was founded on religious freedom. They came over here to get away. Our ancestors came over here to get away from the state controlling your religious practices. So we have a literal church here trying to practice their religion, and part of their religious beliefs includes not practicing homosexuality. But now we're not supposed to let them do that. Now we're having people that want the state to come in and tell a church, well, you have to hire them even if they are gay, even if what they do is against your religious beliefs. Oh, well, you still have to hire them. They still have to work for you. You still have to make a cake for them if you're a business. This is different than like a bakery, though, not making a cake for a gay wedding because it's against religious beliefs. This is a legit church. This is a legit religious organization. And they should have the right, you would think, as a part of their religion, to say, look, your lifestyle does not align with our religious beliefs. And we can't have you be an example and a teacher to the children when we're trying to teach a Christian message while you're openly homosexual. And in a free country, I would think that not only would a church be allowed to do that, but if you don't like that, don't go to the church. If you don't like that, don't work there. That's part of freedom as well. No one's forcing you to work there. No one's forcing you to go to that church. No one's forcing you to be a Christian. That's what it means to be a free country. To have the freedom, for churches to have the freedom to practice their religion, but for individuals to have the freedom not to go there if they don't want to, or not to be a Christian if they don't want to. Let's hear a little bit from the two girls who were saying they were fired from this church.
I still want to work with young kids because I love them. So they told me I was one of the best. I don't like to say that I am, but and then I said, could I be fired? And she said yes. I never thought that they would actually fire me for being gay.
I found that really offensive that she felt like she was in a place to judge my sin.
She said this sin was not socially acceptable. If a person can do their job, gay, straight, whatever, they should just be able to work and do their job that they love to do.
What's very interesting is it almost sounds like they're admitting that it's a sin. That she judge my sin. Are you admitting that is a sin? Because it seems like if you're openly having a gay affair, then you're not thinking it's a sin. And obviously, as Christians, we all fall short. The Bible says that. We all sin. But this is different than just making mistakes and sinning. This is believing there's nothing wrong with it. And you're at a church teaching Christianity. Shouldn't the church be allowed to say, look, we can't have you here? It's a contradiction of our beliefs. 407-674-1025. What does it mean to be a free country anymore? That's my question. Is this freedom? Is it freedom for the state to force a religious organization to hire someone who goes against their beliefs? And where does it end? You know, what if somebody was a devil worshiper? And they admit, hey, I worship the devil. And the church said, look, we can't have you teaching kids if you're an openly devil worshiper. No, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But homosexuality is that one issue here where they're trying to make it aligned with race, which it's not the same thing. Being in a gay relationship is an action. It's a verb. It's an action. You literally have no control over your race. It's just the color of your skin. But even if you have gay thoughts, gay tendencies, you still have control over whether you openly admit it's okay and openly participate in a homosexual activities in a homosexual relationship. So there's a difference right there. But where does this end? That's my question. I think this is going to continue on. Because notice how it started with businesses. By the way, the Constitution says nothing about separation of church and businesses. It's church and state. So a business should be able to practice their religious beliefs. But it started with businesses, and now it's moving on to the churches themselves. Trying to force the churches themselves to do this. Starting with the preschool. What's next? It's going to be all Christian private schools. They won't be able to say anything against homosexuality. And then eventually, once that door's opened a little bit, they won't be able to say anything. You know, whatever the government decides is politically incorrect. They won't be able to say anything about that. Even if it goes with their Christian beliefs. Then eventually, it's going to go to the religious ceremonies themselves. Eventually, they're going to force pastors of churches, because they get the power from the state to license marriages. They're going to force pastors of the churches to perform gay weddings. That's the next step after that. Even if it's against their religious beliefs, you would think the pastor would have the choice to be able to perform any marriage. If they disagree with even a regular heterosexual marriage, that the pastor would have the choice. Look, you guys are living a sinful life, and this is heterosexuals, and you're not doing proper Christian life. You're not going to Christian counseling. I'm not going to marry you. But now we're getting to the point where the government's going to step in, and this is what's going to happen in the future. You watch, where the government's going to step in and try to force pastors to perform marriages, gay marriages, and they won't have a choice. And then where does it end from there? All of a sudden, you have the government involved in your church activities. And it'll be more and more things. The whole reason we have one of the biggest reasons we have the First Amendment and religious freedom wasn't to keep religion out of government. That was one reason. But what they were really afraid of was to keep government out of the church. So churches could act freely without interference from the state. Because anytime there's interference from the state, it becomes corrupt. That's what happened in Europe. They didn't want that to be here. But now that's what's happening. Religious organizations are getting interrupted by the state. Do you want your state to have control over how a church does their activities? 407-674-1025. Maybe I'm too cruel. I don't know. I mean, hey, they say she was one of the best teachers. Hey, maybe they should just forget about her open homosexuality and just let her teach. Maybe I'm just too cruel. And maybe there are churches who would have done differently. The point I'm trying to make here is the church should be able to choose how to do this. And that's what they're trying to take away. The churches ability to choose and to practice their religious beliefs. By the way, I would hope the church was consistent, because homosexuality isn't the only sin. There's lots of sins. So if there's a teacher there who is openly in a sexual relationship, even if it's a heterosexual, like a girl teacher's in an openly sexual relationship with a guy teacher, and they're not married, and they're practicing and saying premarital sex is okay, then that's also a sin, and they should be able to fire that teacher. Same thing. I mean, we can't be biased against one sin over the other. I have a caller here from Rick in Orlando. What do you think about this? Shouldn't the church, as a religious organization, have the right to choose who works for them? And if someone is against their religious beliefs, they should have the right to fire them?
Well, because of the fact that it's a church, yes. I mean, yes, it's a religious, based. It's a church, for God's sake. It's religious based, establishment.
You say that like it's common sense, for God's sakes, but there's a lot of people out there who think the government should force the church to hire them back.
Well, if it's a business, sure. If it's private sector, something like that, you're not going to discriminate against anybody in this country and get away with it. But, when it's a religious thing, that's like you said, there's a separation there. You can't force somebody to change their religion to meet somebody else's, objective or someone else's opinion. You can't do that.
I'm with you, man. By the way, Rick, how old are you?
26.
26? Okay, good. I'm sorry. I just randomly ask callers sometimes how old they are, because I'm really glad that there's young people like me listening. There's sort of an assumption. This is like totally off topic, but there's sort of an assumption out there that people your age or my age are not into this kind of stuff, and they're stupid and not into news and uninformed. But I mean, you're listening. So.
Yeah, well, I came across. I was listening to it, and it is a problem. Like I said, listen, nobody can discriminate against anybody in this country and get away with it. But just like the gay community, will tell people, listen, I'm gay. This is my life choice. If you don't like it, then don't be gay. I completely agree with that. On the same token, you can't force that upon somebody's religion. If someone's religious and they have beliefs, you can't say, well, I'm gay, so you need to make the exception. Just like I can't say I'm religious, so you need to make the exception. They're both mutually exclusive,
That, Rick, you're awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate you for listening. Hope you'll listen again. Yeah, honestly, he makes a good point. We've totally misconstrued what tolerance means. Usually we tolerate other people. It doesn't mean we have to like them or agree with their beliefs. We just tolerate them. But now it's become where tolerance is supposed to mean you force your beliefs on someone else. That's the new tolerance. That's not tolerance. That's, well, I don't know. That's actually the opposite. Intolerance. 407-674-1025. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio. BeyondReasonRadio.com. News Radio 1025 WFLA. So Rand Paul is the next person to announce that he is running for president. He announced earlier this week for the Republican. He's running for the Republican nomination. Rand Paul, of course, son of Ron Paul. And he's already under some fire, already getting some controversy over some things he has done and said in interviews. And it all started, I believe, on NBC on the Today Show, where he was interviewed. And, well, basically, this is how the exchange went. Interview 1. Yeah, it's a cut. Rand Paul interview 1, yeah.
You once said Iran was not a threat. Now you say it is. You once proposed ending foreign aid to Israel. You now support it, at least for the time being. And you once offered to drastically cut. Wait. Once drastically wanted to cut defense spending, and now you want to increase it 16%. So I just wonder if you've mellowed out.
Why don't we let me explain instead of talking over me, okay? Before we go through a litany of things you say I've changed on, why don't you ask me a question? Have I changed my my opinion.
Have you
That
changed
would be
your
sort of
opinion?
a better way to approach an interview.
Okay.
No.
Is Iran still not a threat?
Editorialized. No. Listen.
No.
You've editorialized. Let me answer a question. You ask a question and you say, have your views changed, instead of editorializing and saying my views have changed.
Now, he makes an interesting point. I kind of don't blame Rand Paul, because he basically goes on this sort of mainstream media outlet and he's basically immediately attacked, is what's happening. But I mean, the question is, should he have taken it a little better? Should he not be as combative? Tom Benson, producer, disagrees with me, and some other people disagree with me. I don't think it matters as much. There's a couple reasons why I believe that. One, I think there's a lot of people out there that are sick of the back and forth, sick of so-called journalists being combative against their interviews, but then it goes the other way where they're sick of the person in the interview being combative. We're sick of the talking heads. We're sick of these gotcha questions, the gotcha moments, the sound bites. So Rand Paul is kind of a refreshing voice in that regard, where he's just not going to put up with it. And I think he might offend people, but I think he might actually appeal to a bunch of people as well. There's another reason why I think this is not as big of a deal as you might think. But first, he was on with Megyn Kelly, and this is where I'm like, Rand, come on, man. Don't back down now. This is the interview.
You know, I think that interviews are difficult. Like right now, while we're doing this interview, I can't see you. You know, I'm in a remote, by a remote camera in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And when an interview is contentious, and when an interview is full of a lot of opinion and editorializing, and it's a long-winded question that's setting you up to say, well, you know, you've been beating your wife all of these years, and when are you going to stop beating your wife? It's very difficult in those contentious interviews. And you can also see, I don't think it makes for good TV on both sides. And I do lose my cool, and I do lose my temper sometime, and I should be better at that. But the thing is, you don't get any visual clues, and it's much harder to have, I think usually when you're sitting down with someone, it's easier to have a reasonable conversation. But you've watched TV. You see TV where it's just yelling back and forth, and I don't think people like that necessarily. But,
I agree.
I
people
wasn't the
don't
one
like that.
starting
Those women
the
were not
contention.
yelling at you. They were not yelling at you.
Well, I wasn't yelling at them either. Basically, it was a talking over each other kind of thing. And
But do you regret
I
it?
don't think it makes for good TV.
Do you regret it?
You
Do
know
you
what
regret
he meant.
shushing the one reporter and jumping in? I mean, Savannah Guthrie's not exactly known for her, aggressive unfairness.
Right. I think the question was unfair. Do I think that I responded appropriately? I would rather not have contentious interviews. I'd rather do 30 minutes with Charlie Rose, laid back in a evening, in a lazy boy chair.
I know, but we only get a few minutes with you, so we got to get in, we got to get out. Like right now, I've got 8 minutes with you. There's not a lot of time for niceties. You understand the position the reporters are in.
Yeah, but you have to also understand the position that he's in as well. As you're trying to do gotcha questions, he's in a position to try to answer your gotcha questions. So that goes both ways. The thing I didn't like about Rand Paul's answer here is he's coming up with excuses. Now it's like, well, the interviews are kind of hard because I can't see you, and maybe I shouldn't have acted this way. By doing that, you're just buying into their premise that you're acting that way, that you're being too contentious, that there's a problem. Don't buy into their premise because you're letting them write the narrative at that point. Just stick to your guns and keep doing what you're doing. And people will say, well, you can't do that. And then you won't get the votes. People will see it and not like it. Yeah, but you know what? And this is my other point. These mainstream media outlets like the Today Show, they don't have the monopoly they once had. Or CNN or MSNBC or CNBC. All these other stations, they don't have the media monopoly that they once had. They're not the place where everyone's getting their news anymore. Now, the problem is Mediaite, a website or something, can get a clip of that, put it on their website, and then it can go viral. But some of those interviews, like the CNN, there was another CNN one that went kind of bad. More people probably watched the Megyn Kelly one, where you looked a little bit better, than the CNN one, because Fox News viewers are way much. So one, you don't have to go on all these shows to get votes, because they don't have the monopoly. We have more diverse media now than ever, and you can go other places to get your voice heard. And you can go to places that will be more friendly. And yes, some places will be contentious. I'm not saying you should boycott all of them. But don't get scared and run off and say, oh, this happened and that happened. I'm making it. No, man, stick to your guns. People will understand. People will support you. And then you'll go on an interview and you'll explain why you did that. I don't know. There's a part of me that gets sick of us complaining about the mainstream media because they're not as mainstream as they used to be. NBC, CBS, ABC. A lot of people get their news from Fox News. They get it from the internet. They get it from social media. And you can control your own narrative that way. So, stop whining. Just stick to your guns. You can win, even with this. All right. That's it. An hour's done beyond reason. I will be back next Friday. Hopefully you can get my podcast, beyondreasonradio.com, if you missed any of the show. Also, make sure to listen to Buttheadinger Live on this station's morning, 6 to 9. News Radio 102.5 WFLA, and I will see you guys next week.
Knowing so well that nothing comes from indifference. I look inside.